12 Best Countries with Zero Income Tax. How much would you love to pay as taxes? I'm sure you would love to pay as low as possible. No wonder tax consultants are your friends. How about paying zero income tax? Yes, you can make legit money without paying any tax. It all depends on where you work and live. If you live in a high-tax country, you may wonder how those countries with lower tax rates make ends meet. Well, they look in other directions to source funds. Let's now discuss the 12 best countries with zero income tax. Number 12. Bahrain. Bahrain readily comes to mind as one of the best countries with zero income tax. The government has all the reasons to spare Bahraini any payment of income tax. The country was one of the first in the Persian Gulf to discover crude oil on its lands. Crude oil is one of the most expensive commodities, and a nation with a rich oil reserve is expected to be wealthy. Thus, the oil discovery enabled Bahrain to have enough resources at its disposal without caring about taxes. Thanks to oil, Bahrain is one of the few countries that can be wealthy without taxes. Manama, the capital of Bahrain, is a decently developed place to live. A good number of expats are there despite the immigration hassle to contend with. Number 11. Brunei. Brunei is another one of the 12 best countries with zero income tax. The country can govern itself and provide all social services efficiently without exacting income tax, also because there is a huge deposit of oil on the island. However, as interesting as it is to live in Brunei, it's not everyone that'll love to live in that tax-free country. The country is far from being friendly to foreigners. Local laws and policing practices make it extremely difficult for expats to live there. You dare not apply for a permanent residency and citizenship unless you manage to somehow gain the approval of the Sultan, the ruler of the country. So it's a case of no income tax, no freedom in Brunei. Number 10. The Cayman Islands. Even without being an oil-based economy, the Cayman Islands is one of the 12 best countries with zero income tax in the world. Tourism is the source of income for this country. Its scenic beaches draw in a lot of tourists, and the government makes enough from these sources to remain afloat without asking citizens to pay taxes on their incomes. As much as you'll love to live long-term in this tax-free country, however, you must be prepared to make a huge investment in real estate or a local company. The government must be convinced that you will be making $145,000 per year. You have spent 8 years in the country. Therefore, if you have money to invest, the Cayman Islands can be an interesting zero-tax option. Number 9. Kuwait. Kuwait is the 9th best country with zero income tax. This Gulf country, like many of its neighbors, does not need to levy an income tax since a lot of money is being made from its large oil industry. Kuwait prides itself in being one of the friendliest countries to expats in the world, as foreigners constitute 2/3 of the population. Even then, you can't just travel there with ease in the hope of enjoying that right of zero income tax. You must have relatives who are Kuwaitis or be formally employed there. Unfortunately, Kuwait is not desperate for foreign investments, so no citizenship by investment. Somehow, Kuwait is one of the 12 best countries with zero income tax. Number 8. The Maldives. Even in the Maldives, you can enjoy a quality life without paying anything as income tax. The Maldivian government makes a lot from its expensive resorts that are not in short supply on the island country. Unfortunately, staying permanently in the country with zero income tax is nearly impossible. To be eligible for the country's citizenship or permanent residence, you have to be not just Muslim, you have to belong to the Sunni branch of Islam. If you could ever be successful at moving there, Maldives is one of the 12 best countries with zero income tax, even if the country doesn't have an easy program for permanent residency for foreigners. Number 12. Monaco. We won't be fair to Monaco if it's not recognized as one of the 12 best countries with zero income tax. It's actually the country's status as one of the world's best zero income tax nations that promote it. Other European countries wonder how this gorgeous nation on the French Riviera can afford to run without charging any income tax. Meanwhile, Monaco tends to attract high income, and it's easy to become a citizen there. You only need to spend many millions of dollars to prove that you're wealthy enough to deserve the country's residency and citizenship. Monaco offers a good alternative for those who prefer European glamour to island life and still want to reduce expenses on income tax. Number 6. Nauru. What many people don't know about Nauru, a small island country in Micronesia, is that it's the location of the controversial detention camp where those seeking asylum in Australia are kept. Well, if the island doesn't live up to that nickname, it has many other charming features. Thus, Nauru, like other Pacific islands, has drawn visitors. The government's desperate efforts to keep the economy afloat have caused it to declare that income will not be taxed. But the country might not be your best bet if you really want to live in a peaceful tax haven in the South Pacific. Number 5. Oman. The 5th best country with zero income tax is Oman. Characteristically of Middle Eastern countries on our list, the Omani oil and gas industry has endowed it with enormous wealth, so the country has no reason to look in the way of tax. To remain entrepreneurial, the country is driving toward economic diversification by opening up its markets to new opportunities. This should constitute a formidable threat and rivalry to the UAE. The country becomes more attractive as one of those with zero income tax. The country even has nice programs for residence visas that you may like to look up. Don't make the mistake of assuming that your capital can earn you a special chance. The country is not dying for that. Also, life in Oman is quite conservative, as there are laws limiting the extent of your enjoyment. Number 4. Qatar. Qatar has many things in common with its neighbors in the Persian Gulf as listed here, so it will be surprising if Qatar is not counted among the 12 best countries with zero income tax. However, the small wealthy country has a highly conservative culture that is rapidly modernizing, courtesy of foreign investment and influence. You will love to live in such a fascinating country due to its influential role in world politics and high level of development. This country, with the world's highest per capita income, should covet residence tax. Though it's a peaceful country, it's not easy to secure permanent residence if you've not lived there for 20 years as an expat and don't have a good command of Arabic. Number 3. St. Kitts and Nevis. We have another Caribbean country as one of the 12 best countries with zero income tax. St. Kitts and Nevis is such a place you can easily establish a tax-free second residence. Besides those tax advantages, the requirement to obtain permanent residency are not very tough, and it costs much lower than it costs in the tax-free countries in the Persian Gulf. Citizenship by Investment program has been reinvigorated in St. Kitts and Nevis since 2017, following the hurricane that hit these scenic Caribbean islands. With a donation of $150,000 to the country's Hurricane Relief Fund, you can get a passport and permanent residence. Number 2. The United Arab Emirates. The UAE, according to the Index of Economic Freedom, is the 10th freest economy in the world. Give this credit to its zero income tax policy. Like its neighbors in the Middle East, UAE is making a lot from oil exports. Why taxing the resident and collecting their decent income? It's among the easiest Gulf countries to invest in as it's openly encouraged foreign investment. But to become a permanent resident is not easy. Of course, there are several programs that enable you to live in the country for decades if you stay away from trouble. You can even obtain a 10-year resident visa. Number 1. Vanuatu. If you want to cite an example of a country that is taking good advantage of its tourism to make revenues with which it will fund its government, turn to the island nations of Vanuatu, who, like its counterpart, relies on tourism to generate income. Vanuatu is making enough from tourism to forego income tax, so we list it first among the countries with zero income tax. This is one of the few countries with zero taxes that offer a second passport easily and quite cheaply. The country's Citizenship by Investment program has been introduced to the country to help revive the economy that was devastated by the cyclone that ripped through the country in 2015. The country's Citizenship by Investment is currently among the easiest in the world to navigate. The country has started accepting Bitcoin as an investment currency. If you find it difficult to go to Vanuatu, don't worry. You're troubling yourself to get to the world's best country with zero income tax for citizenship. Well, the fact that you don't pay a tax in a country doesn't make life interesting nor offer you higher economic freedom. You might be paying the kind of cash you ought to have paid if you were living in a tax society. Nevertheless, you can live in any of these countries and enjoy all of your income if you're prepared to part with some of the rights you presently take for granted. Thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe, comment, and turn on the notification bell.